Hey UConn Nation, it's KK Arnold here. If you're looking for the latest UConn women's basketball content, go subscribe to listen up to Phil and Ryan. Go Huskies!
Learn how to talk, Phil. That's the message tonight on Listen Up. Too bad it doesn't matter. The Huskies move on, and what matters more is not the English language, Ryan, but we will have another episode tomorrow morning. It's Phil and Ryan on Listen Up. Thank you, KK and Ryan. In this video, we are going to break down this very dramatic win. It was dramatic at halftime, but what, Oklahoma like 22, what did I see? 22-0 after trailing at halftime, something like that, right? But anyway, it didn't matter. These UConn Huskies have the best player in the world, and you know who that is. Gino knows who it is. That's all we have to say, and that's the reason why I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it was, if you watch this game up until halftime and then turned it off at the start of the third quarter, you wouldn't really know what happened. It definitely seemed a lot closer. It was a lot closer at halftime, but Paige Bueckers happened. But yeah, Oklahoma really started this game all strong, 8-0 run, and then UConn quickly answered that with their own 10-0 run. And at first, it was the Huskies that really allowed the Sooners to get into the paint, and they were taking rush shots on offense, and then those roles reversed when UConn went on their run. Paige started to find her mid-range game. Oklahoma really started to struggle with taking care of the ball. I said coming into this game, UConn can really capitalize on the Sooners' turnovers. Oklahoma started to heat up on the offensive end, and eventually took the lead in the second quarter. I call it the Reagan Beers effect because UConn would have two or three players surrounding her, which obviously left the opposite side of the floor open for another player to drive the lane. And Oklahoma took advantage of that and also started to hit their 3-point shots. UConn's offensive rebounds was really what kept them into the game there in the second quarter. They really struggled to get any type of shot to fall. Paige even scored 11 points in the first, zero in the second. Sooners took a 4-point lead in the halftime, and like you mentioned, Oklahoma was 22-0 when up at halftime, and UConn was 0-2 when down at halftime this season. Obviously, that stat changed tonight on both ends, and UConn was shooting their worst field goal percentage of the season through one half. So obviously something had to change, and Paige Bueckers was what changed in the second half. She definitely wasn't going out without a fight. Started to really just take over the game. I mean, for 20 straight minutes, she basically took over the whole entire game, and the Huskies' defensive intensity really amped up. We see that a lot after the break. A switch just kind of gets flipped, and all that resulted in a 16-0 run. And the turnovers just really killed Oklahoma in this game. I mean, at the end of the third quarter, the Sooners had 21 turnovers and only 19 made field goals. So that's definitely not a winning recipe to defeat UConn or to win any game, really. And this was just a vintage Paige Bueckers performance, taking over the game when UConn as a team, especially in the first half, like I mentioned, was not shooting the ball well at all. And Paige just gets into this mode where no one can stop her. Really fun to watch her tonight. What a game from Paige, and a career high 40-point performance in the Sweet 16.
Like, comment, and subscribe. I know some people probably don't want to, but we're not going there, Ryan, because again, what matters more is what matters most. We're going on. Are you okay, Ryan? We're going on tomorrow morning, right? Right back here in the morning. Now, don't you love how ESPN says notifications out all the time? Don't you love that, Ryan? Listen to this here. Paige Becker scores career high 40 points, outscores Oklahoma by herself in second half of UConn's 82-59 Sweet 16 win. Ryan, and then you had one that went out and said Bueckers about her being on fire. Bueckers, first UConn player ever with multiple 30-point games in a single tournament. I had to ask you this before we get down into comments. What's your thoughts on where all this was? Because I knew, correct me if I'm wrong, I think earlier in the season we were talking about Yeah, she's kind of slow and she's not like she usually was in years past. I told you some stuff we don't know what happens behind the scenes. I'm not putting any actions, words into anybody's mouth. All I'm telling you, Ryan, is don't you think some stuff is saved, right? For when it matters most? That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think during, when playoff time hits at the end of February and beginning of March, I just really think a switch gets flipped in some of these players. And, I think Gino and Paige really know what to expect when playoff time hits. And, I think that's just the type of player Paige is. I mean, when the game gets close and, when clutch time is needed, she just knows when to show up and when to hit the big time shots and knows when to really take over the game. And that's that's exactly what happened tonight.
All right, let's get down in the comments, Ryan, on Listen Up. Let's go over to Stevie Kinsey. He said Oklahoma is tough. Our defense will need to step up. I would like to see Jaina have more of a presence inside. I'm expecting it to be neck and neck through the first half, and I'm hoping we can pull away in the second half. Stevie drew it right up, right on the script.
Yeah, that's exactly what
Yeah.
happened. It definitely was neck and neck there at halftime, and especially how UConn started the game was a little bit worrying, but luckily they figured it out pretty quickly there, and definitely their defensive intensity and energy really helped them in the second half, along with Paige obviously on offense, but from the defensive side of things, really forcing Oklahoma into all those turnovers. The Sooners just couldn't get anything to fall or set up hardly any type of offense there the whole entire second half.
I'm just wondering if it's going to be close. Let me just stop while I'm ahead. I'm wondering if it's going to be close in any of these rounds because all I ask you is I'm surprised how once I read you some more of these comments, I want to know when people will start to hop actually on the UConn wagon, right? Because listen to some of this, Ryan. UConn will pressure Oklahoma into turning the ball over for transition baskets. UConn by 12. The disruptive one. Oklahoma is dangerous. They resemble Tennessee in some ways. They do have a turnover problem, though, and UConn should be able to exploit that issue for a lot of easy points. UConn by around 10. It just seems like we're still stuck on regular season. I said it when March started, when the tournament started. This is a new season.
Yeah, and it really felt like it tonight. I mean, Paige Bueckers, you can't really predict a career high performance, but that's certainly what happened tonight. I mean, six 3-pointers. Like I said, really just got into a mode for 20 straight minutes where it didn't really matter how close Oklahoma guarded or what shots she threw up. Everything was working, everything was going in, and that's really what did it for UConn in that second half.
How about one more, Ryan? I like this one a lot because this is like life in general. Every morning you wake out of bed, somebody is really competing to be better than you, right? Lindsey Matthews said every team wants to beat UConn. That's the reputation we earn, so we have to happily live with it. We're happy, or excuse me, we're the top program in the country with 11 national championships. No other team comes close. So that's our lives. Everyone wants to beat UConn. Wow, what a way to end it tonight.
Yeah, I mean we've kind of touched on that before, in a couple months past at certain times how UConn is obviously, whenever any team plays them, that they want to try their hardest and they want to beat UConn and you really just show out in front of, all these fans and people watching at home. I mean, all their games are almost sold out, so obviously everybody wants to have a big performance against UConn and really try their hardest to beat UConn whenever they play them. And yeah, it's how much success that UConn has had for the last uncountable amounts of years in a row really just adds to the pressure every season. But like Paige said before, it's a pressure to live with that kind of privilege, to live with that kind of pressure. So, I think UConn definitely took that to heart tonight and took advantage of that.
Ryan, everyone has the impulse to be, what's the word I'm looking for from you? Elite. That's what they're doing. They're advancing to the Elite Eight, the UConn Huskies. Again, final score on this Saturday. We appreciate everybody. Like, comment, and subscribe. 82-59 Huskies over the Sooners. Hats off to Reagan, Beers, and Oklahoma. Just obviously not enough this season. But again, Ryan, a very quick turnaround. And get your sleep. Everybody get your sleep. Phil and Rye on Listen Up.